Person Hinolan was a radio broadcaster in the province of Aklan in central Philippines, who became known for his fiery critiques about government corruption and abuse, particularly in his province. On the night of November 13 in 2004, Hinolan was gunned down by unidentified men riding a motorcycle and died 2 days later in a hospital. A sign of the high regard his audience gave him was a well-attended funeral. Hinolan is one of 76 Filipino journalists who have been killed from 1986 to the present, a period in the Philippines known as a return to democracy after 14 years under a dictatorship. Most of those killed are radio broadcasters. This has today given the Philippines a sorry reputation internationally as the world's most dangerous country for journalists after Iraq. The Brussels-based International Federation of Journalists, in a mission sent to investigate the killings in January 2005, found a culture of violence allowed and even encouraged by the Philippine authorities, a culture that has encouraged these killings. Of all 76 cases of killed journalists, for example, only in 3 cases has there been a conviction. In one case, a lifetime sentence was slapped on the suspected gunman, a former police officer. Filipino journalists, particularly radio broadcasters who work in secondary town centers, practice their profession under very difficult circumstances.
After Sir Boy, may susunod na titirahin. Hindi ko naman alam na ako pala yung susunod na titirahin. Bayad na lang yung kulang sa'yo. Hindi ka naabutan ng ati-atihan.
After Boy Hinolan, marami kami na-treat. I'm deterred to be treated with.
Democratic practices in the Philippines are still mostly trappings that camouflage the real politic, particularly in the local and regional areas. Local officials wield king-like powers in their own kingdoms, often allowing them the power of life and death over the people they rule. Filipino journalists in these local places are thus always torn between firmly doing their jobs but risking their safety, or entering into political compromises that protects them from harm and continuing threat, as well as earns them the financial rewards they would not gain otherwise through honest work.
Ang mga mamamahayag. Pag ikaw nakaharap sa isang sitwasyon na sa isang banda may gun muzzle na nakatutok sa iyo at sa kabilang banda may envelope na may pera, you're going to take the easy way out. Either way, violation yan ng press freedom. There is silence, there is corruption, which is equally, as deadly an assault on press freedom.
They like to say that they fight on the trenches daily, and on some days they win, but on other days they lose. In February 2006, President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo caused a series of attacks on media when she proclaimed a state of national emergency in the Philippines. The proclamation, which lasted a week, puzzled most Filipinos, who saw no state of emergencies, and alarmed civil liberties advocates, who saw the move as a step towards authoritarian rule. Top government officials, including the highest officer in the police organization, repeatedly warned media to cooperate with government or face the consequences.
To all of you, if possible, wag naman po natin ilagay sa isang ang ating pamamalita o papahayag na lalo po tayong aabot sa kaguluhan.
One opposition newspaper was under heavy guard during the length of the state of emergency. 2 radio programs were shut down.
Well, in the past week or so, the PCRJ has spent a great deal of its energies trying to protect ourselves.
As far as the 1017 is concerned, is that we are very, we've discussed about this and we're very alarmed, not just with the 1017, but kung ano yung nangyari afterwards, the raiding, the Daily Tribune, the casing of Abante Tabloid.
Those with access to grind in the local areas saw it as an opportunity, kidnapping another journalist in Aurora Province. The freelance broadcaster remains missing today. In the last 2 years, the threat to Filipino journalists' safety at work has been coming mainly from the institution supposed to protect its citizens' freedom of the press. That is, the government. As the situation deteriorated, and especially in the last few years, several concerned journalist groups have organized campaigns against the killings, pushing the police to pursue investigations with more determination and pressuring the courts to act to redress the injustices.
Ang hinihingi lang natin is gampanan ang batas, parusahan ang mga nagva-violate ng batas na ito. There are laws for murder, so bakit hindi nasusunod yan? Bakit napakahina ng takbo ng hustisya sa bansang ito?
One of these groups is the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, which in year 2000 started its campaign to stop the killings of journalists. Among its activities has been a pilot safety training program specially for journalists, organized in 2005, which has received extremely good reception. In November 2005, the NUJP set up the Manila Safety Office of the International Federation of Journalists, starting several projects that might help safeguard journalist safety in the country. Foremost of this is now the safety training program. Other projects include documentation of threats and quick reaction in support of threatened journalists, monitoring of legal cases, and pilot testing of alternative complaints mechanisms. NUJP believes that stopping the violent attacks on Philippine media requires tremendous pressure for even bigger reforms in government. But the journalists themselves should act to build this pressure by strengthening their own solidarity and unity, and by raising the standards of their own ethical practice. The unofficial number of Filipino journalists has been pegged at 4,000. Many are scarred from their daily battles with corruption and political influence. Many have given up. But a good number are young, courageous, and idealistic. It is for them, for the future of Philippine media and of Philippine democracy, and of world journalistic standards, and subsequently, international human development standards, that the fight against more media killings and threats in the Philippines must be supported now.